my team said like a lot of people in the audience are sleeping, so you have to make some jokes first before starting something. So they have shared something on my phone. I was not very comfortable cracking those jokes, but I have a little one from my nephew who's 6-year-old that a lot of these scientists and engineers created AI because they wanted to shift their blames to some machines. I don't know. Okay.
Well, so please don't get up and go, okay?
Yes,
sorry, I was kidding.
Yes, definitely. I think we are already a little delayed, so I'll directly jump to the session, and maybe I can start with Anand only. Another thing, everybody is talking about AI. I think we had fantastic tracks in the keynotes starting yesterday with Paris and all. But one fundamental thing that is still, I think, lacks understanding from a lot of us is like what it needs to create those scalable AI infrastructure. And are there any challenges to make them? And obviously, if you help us to understand how to mitigate those challenges and create an scalable AI part.
Yeah, thanks. Thanks for this question. See, I'll start by saying one thing, right? AI is such a important shift that's happening right now in pretty much every industry out there. And I think it's affecting, the first thing which it affects automatically is any automation. Anywhere where you have data, the first thing people want to do is you can apply some intelligence to data, right? So that means that if you want to have intelligence, you first need some data. Now, it could be data about the world, which is knowledge about the world. It could be data about the customers, users. It could be data about your own company internally, right? So there are various different types of data. And as you collect this data, the very first thing you need to do is to see whether this data is highly reliable. The integrity of the data matters a lot, right? And you need to invest your energy and your resources in making sure this cleanliness is there, and it needs to be there all the time. And data as it is not something static, it's dynamic, so it's constantly coming. So you constantly need to improve this data, right? After you have all this data, you need some infrastructure to make sense out of it. And the one thing which I often quote is, in 1904, the Wright brothers invented what is called controlled flight. Okay, people have tried all kinds of flights before, controlled flight, right? When do you think, and today, 99.99% of the travel which happens, all air flight travels, happens with the autopilot mechanisms. Okay, only takeoff and landing is controlled by the pilots. With so much autopilot going on, there is enormous amount of signals which are going on. There is actually AI happening. And then I was talking to a pilot the other day, and he was saying, whenever there is turbulence, right, all the passengers are rattled, the pilots are very calm. But after 30 seconds, if the turbulence doesn't get addressed, the pilots are freaking out because they don't know what to do. The autopilot system was supposed to address it, and it did not address in the first 30 seconds. So they get super rattled after the first 30 seconds, right? And now they're sitting on so much types of data, and they need to apply some sense of intelligence to how do you get you out of turbulence, right? So anyway, the point which the one thing which I wanted to say is that in 1904, when the controlled flight was started, it was so small. There was no element of commercialization. It was still by some hackers, nerds which were just trying to make some flights and go longer and longer, go higher and all these things. The very first autopilot system, right, was in 1914. Already somebody figured, what is this? Humans trying to manage things. I mean, it's got to be managed by something, right? So my point here is that as you start getting data, the first thing humans do is naturally get more intelligence out of it. And that's what we're doing right now.
Right. I think I'm totally syncing with you, especially when you talks about all the layers of that infra, and especially the data part. Few years back, Mr. Mani said data is the new oil, but what we are facing now is data is the oil, not the new oil, right? And also I think one of the very good example of the aerospace industries, which shows like how much dependent we are becoming towards the technology, especially AI. Nithya, if I comes to you, because Anand has already brought up the point of data, and as introduced by my MC, like you are the secret sauce of Kellogg's data policies. So what's your take on, especially on the data management and data lakes of entire AI infrastructure? And again, because, one of the biggest thing that we always encounter is like, if the time to market for any AI model is 6 months, almost 4 to 5 months is just the cleaning of the data, right? And the actual production is only for 1 month. So maybe any views on how to manage those data management part, especially to build those AI infra part?
Yeah, I mean, I think, is it working?
Yes,
Okay.
yes.
So, be at organizations, especially on this across the strategy table, we end up spending so much time talking about how we can harness the cutting edge technology, right? Not only AI, right? Now we are talking about other things like, robotics. We are talking about, also, quantum is just around the corner, right? So we talk about all of these things, but, if I were to kind of introspect, right, are we ready in terms of, the fundamentals to ensure that we are able to leverage all of this cutting edge technology? I would say no. Right? There was one person, in fact, therefore, I had this thing, this opinion, right, that we should first work our fundamentals 100% correct before we kind of embark on, cutting edge technology. And the fundamental includes not just infrastructure, but to your point, data as well. But then there was another parallel school of thought, right? One person was like, when I was young in the sense 25, in late 25s, late 20s, he said, my mother asked, are you ready to get married? Then he said, okay, no, I'm not settled, I got to go, earn for myself and, have the ability to take care of a family. But then, it's like, you are never ready, right? He asked himself at 25 and then 28 and 30 and then he got married. And then he figured out stuff with life. So this is just one anecdote which I thought, is that you are as organization also never 100% ready with your fundamentals, right? Even when it comes to data. Right? And so what you need to do is, right, as you figure out the madness around data, right, you need to also parallelly think about what sort of problems you can potentially solve once you are able to kind of crack your data code, right? Now, coming to this data aspect, right? Now, how difficult or easy it has been for us. It has not been easy, right? Let me be very honest with you, because Kellanova is a very typical CPG organization which has got a lot of markets. Every market does things then, in their own way, right? So we have got different siloed data sources. And I think this is not very typical of my company. It is typical of every company, right? So the first and foremost is that we need to simplify our processes. We need to simplify our tools so that we have got simplified data ecosystem. Right? And then that will also ensure that we are not operating in silos. That will ensure that there is very less duplication of data across various systems, right? That's where we need to start with. Right? Once we have figured that out and once we have the data brought onto our ecosystem, we need to ensure that the data is, brought in and acquired and retained only as much as is needed. Right? We are dealing with a lot of personal proprietary information, right? And unless we have a reason to bring that onto our cloud or wherever, whichever ecosystem that we are working on, we should not. And then we should retain only as much as needed. And then, of course, all of this follows the policies of data quality, data, security, privacy, and also, there are so many things, right? So we need to have one data governance council, right? So and there need to be well-defined frameworks and well-defined rules so that all of these, requirements are taken care of, right? To summarize, data is fundamental. It's necessary. It's I would say, as you mentioned, the oil that is going to kind of fuel the organization. So we need to ensure that that is governed properly. And in terms of fundamentals, right, we need to work on the data fundamentals and infrastructure fundamentals, but also not losing the sight of, what we potentially could do with all the cutting edge technology. Or else in my friend's example, he would have never got married.
Fair enough. And I think, Ranganath, so if I ask you, I think Nithya has already decoded a little bit on data part. But one of the fundamental challenges within data that I personally believe is like a lot of organizations think that we should process this on-prem or the cloud, especially if you are working in a very in a B2B setup where the data is very important, let's say healthcare industry or maybe industrial setups, right? How do you see from, let's say, an on-prem perspective, and also if you can add some perspective on the cloud as well, what is the best practices? Should we move ahead with the on-prem part or the cloud part, or what are you seeing from your customer sets?
So, afternoon everyone. So, from what I see with customers across India, there are only two journeys that customers have today. They are in the cloud and moving towards some kind of an on-prem solution, or they are on-prem and moving towards the cloud, right? So, these are the two journeys that are there. And in between lies that transformation zone, right, where everyone wants to transform themselves into what I think idealistically today is hybrid reality, right?
Right.
The question to every organization needs to ask is, what's my hybrid strategy? Because that's what the world is going to look like. And this transformation zone, I say, it's like the Mahabharata scenario, right? There are Pandavas and Kauravas. You decide who's Pandava, who's Kaurava. But nevertheless, the battle is there and on. And to me, when you're looking at data being oil, water, air, whatever you say, it's the most critical thing, right? If it is the most critical thing, as organizations, we need to protect and use data wherever it resides, right? Wherever your application is, whether it's on your mobile phone, whether it's in a data center, or whether it's in a cloud, or wherever your data is, you need to build capability which are competent enough to handle data across wherever it resides. Your business needs it today to have it on a mobile phone. You need to do a transaction from the mobile phone. Nobody goes into a bank today, right? So in that context, I would assume that the world would be hybrid, which means that you will have to process your data on-prem, you'll have to process your data on the cloud, you'll have to process it wherever it's required. So in situations like this, what becomes important is to understand where would you want to keep your data and what is the kind of data. Ultimately, we are creating a lot of data. Somebody gives me a missed call, and how much of data you create into an Airtel or a Vodafone. Your number, my number, your plan, where are you, what time, etc., right? For you, it's an innocuous missed call. I'll give you a missed call, buddy, and you can come over. But you're creating so much of data. Where would you want to keep that data depends on the organizational requirements. If you're looking at India today, a lot of BFSI organizations would want to handle data with security, with compliance, with no latency and stuff like that. If you're looking at innovation from startup organizations, they would really want to work from the cloud. They are doing work with AI that way. So it depends. So in a hybrid world, I use this term called consciously hybrid. Your effort on a day-to-day basis to understand your workload requirements and position your data or application wherever it is, whether it's hybrid or thing. So, I think it's a hybrid world, and you as the owner of data and application have the mandate to serve that to your businesses. And how do you do that is something that you take a call on using consciously hybrid nature, I would say.
On this, I just remember back in my IT days in 2010, we were doing some POC with the BSNL. And the BSNL engineer told us when you're doing a missed call, it creates some 16 pages of log at the BTS. Yeah. And I was like, oh, is it? My mom will always do missed call only. She never calls. And she was so perfect on missed call, you can never pick.
And you're not giving revenue to the vendor, yeah.
So Apul, maybe I can pick your brain on this as well. For example, you are in especially in the healthcare space, and I think that you have been at the both sides, so in the on-prem and the cloud, right? How has been your journey, especially if you talk about from AI perspective and little bit of flavor of healthcare as well, from on-prem and the cloud?
All right. So thank you everyone. My name is Apul. I represent Rapid AI. We are essentially into medical imaging. So we extract better meaning from medical imaging data, which helps physicians make accurate decisions really quickly, and it helps improve overall patient care. I don't really sound generally like this. I've got a sore throat, or I think it's the AI that's working, giving me a better baritone, perhaps. I don't know, something to that effect. So sorry about that. So I think Ranganath was talking about the on-prem to cloud and cloud to on-prem. Somebody's Pandava, somebody's Kauravas, right? I think I was wondering at that time, where do I fit? So what we've realized is, or at least what I have realized in the last minute or so, of that is I think we are playing the role of Krishna here, like the Sarthi, which is sort of guiding both the sides, saying, so much workload can move from prem to cloud, the other can actually move from cloud to prem, if I may be so immodest to say. But all fun aside, see, I think regulated industry, especially like the one that I come from, which is healthcare, right? It's not been very easy to just move away from an on-prem, which is where you've got your walled gardens, your data resides within that, and just open it up to cloud. Now, with a lot of AI, so what we really do is we've got AI algorithms which are approved by the FDA, which run on CT scans, MRI scans, and essentially find out, parameters from if the patient is suffering from stroke or what kind of hemorrhage or what kind of stroke he's having, right? So now the critical part here is the time sensitiveness, right? Because every minute counts when the patient's on the table, right? It really doesn't matter whether I'm running fabulous AI which gives results after 20 minutes, it won't get accepted. The patient's dead or the patient's not going to have a quality of life that you want, right? So it's very imperative that we evaluate that. So for us, on-prem and clouds are means to deliver the value. Yeah. Now, on-prem gives us, a much lower latency, quicker turnaround. We are able to process faster. And we've been able to demonstrate that. We've got close to about 2,500 hospitals already using the solution, right? So it's really proven. But the problem with on-prem is you don't have elasticity to scale. You really can't scale because as more and more AI becomes prevalent and starts getting used in these kinds of setups, especially in healthcare where I come from, as you get more and more anatomy, sort of you're processing through AI, the elasticity is a challenge. So you really have to look at cloud from managing that workload, and that's where hybrid's very important. For acute care, where you need time sensitive acute care, you really run things on prem, but you have the ability to shift the workload to cloud for other things which are not so acute in nature, and then you are able to probably deploy modules much faster. Make region-based decisions, or because there are compliances and other things that come into play. So you have to be very cognizant of those facts, right? How do you really manage? But for us, yes, our journey has been sort of taking what has worked really, really well on-prem and sort of looking at how do we go to this hybrid workflow or hybrid deployment architecture so that we are able to get best of the both worlds, which is really quick turnaround, but give elasticity and scale where required.
And I believe this is true for at the use case level as well, right? The use cases which are more scalable are running on the cloud, and the use cases which are more internal, which is like say helping the cost center of the company, and the use cases which are helping the revenue center. So revenue center is more running on the cloud, and cost center is more running on the on-prem. Is my understanding correct?
So partially yes, I would say. It's just that cloud gives you more avenues to monetize, right? So, as Rapid, once we have that, there's a lot more turnaround, how I can line that data up. So, for example, my friends were talking about data is a new oil, right?
Right.
I partially disagree. I think data is a new sludge. I think the synthesis of it, distillation of it is what generates oil, right? So, what I meant by that is once I have amassed that medical imaging data, how do I really make a lot more value for that customer, right? Now, I can't do that continuously on-prem because I'm limited by the compute power I have, by the storage, by the memory, by the use cases that are provisioned for it. But when I'm on the cloud and I have convinced the customer that I can deliver a strong value, they'd be more than okay for us to do that and demonstrate it to them. Because the value is where the money lies, right? Cost. I think like when you're selling in India, revenue matters. When you go to a customer and say, I can increase your revenue, they're saying, let's sit on the chair, let's talk. But if I go and tell them, I'm going to save your time, they'll say, yeah, there are about 5 others waiting with the same story.
Right.
And honestly, I don't think there's any one particular secret sauce to it, right? We cannot put this in a certain framework that, these kind of applications or these kind of use cases, right? But to his point, right, it has to be a decision made on where you require scalability, vis-a-vis where you require, security and privacy, right? And I just wanted to also throw open one another point in discussion is about, beyond cloud on-prem, we are not talking about edge. We are talking about AI-enabled, Gen AI-enabled smartphones. We are talking about PC, AI PC, right? So that's another one wherein, for very typical applications which are like diagnosing the scan images to find something, right? So they can be like pretty much in real time, right? Because the application is running on edge, right? So I think, it's not only about cloud on-prem, on cloud, public, private, and then on-prem, it's also about edge.
Right. So Nithya, what are the use cases that you are trying to solve from Kellanor point of view?
So there are many, typical use cases of a retail CPG organization. So, couple of things, right, pretty recent is, we wanted to do a retail store execution, right? So, which means, right, if you go to any of your supermarkets, right, there will be, one full shelf of Kellogg's products, right? So, which means, you'll see all the cornflakes, mueslis, and the Pringles, right? So, we want to ensure that the product placements are correct, right? So how do we want to ensure is to kind of take the picture of that, run it through our on edge solution to see whether we have placed the products correctly, right? And then if we have a persistence of these images on our cloud, right? We would be able to, I mean, this is a futuristic thing, right? We would be able to kind of match that with our net sold volume and have a model built to see what sort of product placements are driving volumes high, right? This is a causal kind of an analysis, right? So for now, we are engaging with multiple vendors to kind of give us a digital shelf application, right? Wherein, as I mentioned, right, photos are taken of the retail shelf. We also look at the competitors' products alongside to see what is the shelf space of Kellogg's versus competitors, right? We also kind of through this are able to identify the lookalikes, right? If you go to any of the Kellogg's, shelves, sometimes you see some lookalikes which are not Kellogg's, but they have the same red color, same K or something like that, right? The typical trademark Kellogg's K, right? So these things we are, we are looking at. And apart from that, there are multiple other use cases I was just discussing in the morning, right? In digital marketing, right? We are using the Gen AI applications in order to kind of come up with marketing creatives, and then we are also kind of using AI to manage those assets for us. For example, if say somewhere in say South Africa, if there is a promotion for the noodles, right? How much of that promotion can be reused for a Chocos promotion in India? Right? So those kind of use cases we are looking at, and then we are looking at internal sales and marketing chatbots, right? We find them to be more intuitive and very quick in insight delivery compared to dashboards. We have all this Tableau and Power BI dashboards, but such kind of a thing is also kind of it can give the sales representatives or the marketing people as to the very quick answers to their questions. For example, what is the NSV of this particular SKU, right? This particular product last quarter, or what sort of promo is the most successful in this particular category, etc. So these are some of the use cases, right? And one thing I've observed is in terms of integration of these use cases. Do you want water? So integration of these use cases, right, across the existing process ecosystem, right, that is something where we have been finding some challenges in terms of change management and everything, but otherwise, where we are right now, we are quite positive about the future.
Got it. So Anand, if I come back to you again, and what we are hearing from Apul or Nithya, it is like every vertical has their own needs, right? Whether it comes to data needs or a specific scalability issues for a specific use case. And while you or Ranganath sir are like pretty much horizontal, right? So how you are seeing it coming from your customers, or what kind of solutions that you are building with your customers, and any best practices or any success path where we have more and more ROI for a particular use case, whether we are running on cloud or maybe on-prem as well.
Yeah. No, I'll tell you, 20 years before, I'm not sure how many of you have used products like Outlook 2003 or Office 2008, these kind of products, right? And today, if I ask you, what version of Gmail do you think you folks are using? It'll be Gmail as of Monday or Tuesday or Wednesday. And if I ask you the same next week, it would have moved, right? And in this reality of cloud, right? It's very, very important, and we are collecting a lot more data, obviously, of your usage of these tools than, say, an Outlook 2003 at that time, what we could collect, right? So now, what becomes challenging is, as you're collecting all this data, it's very important to have a version of the truth, right? Your product is evolving, the users are evolving, and the data is coming in constantly on usages, on, you know, as they, how much time they're spending on one particular area and all these things, right? So I think inside Google, we spend a tremendous amount of time, not just on data quality about the real world, right? We of course care about, you know, what is the latest score from an India-Zimbabwe match, right? That is important. But we also care a lot about what data is coming in about our users, customers, and how do you use this to give a better solution to people, right? And so data cleanliness is one thing, the real-time refreshes is another thing, and the versioning of this data, like what is this attached to? What type of behavior is this attached to? All that matters a lot. And I think one of the biggest strengths we have found is that our rate of launching things and our ability to affect people's lives increases massively when we can build an infra where we have all these data sets coming in, but we also make it very easy for people to analyze this data internally really well. So we spend a tremendous amount of time on, like literally as a product manager, they can go to a page and create their own dashboard. And they didn't like it, they don't need to go and ask an engineer to write a custom program to find out, okay, how many people search for a particular Kellogg cereal on this one particular day. We don't need to do such things, right? So it needs to be, so I think this amount of infra you can create, first to have clean data, then to understand your data, and then to, you know, use that data to get insights. And how fast, so we track how fast product managers can create insights. Right? This is a very important element for us. For example, from the Android phones, how quickly can you find what is, so we launched a bunch of features in what is called digital well-being. What are people struggling with their phones? Where do they want to reclaim some of that time? What's going on, right? And to create a product like that, right, you really, really need to understand users at a very granular level. It's easy to create cohorts as, you know, people from 25 to 30 in Hyderabad, males. And that's one cohort. But then if you want to zoom in and get very granular, there are these type of cohorts where people are doing, there are like 15,000 variables. And this creates like one cohort, and maybe in that cohort there are like only 10 people. And then you need to do some aggregations to get higher. And then you can test some features. So our strength is in being able to understand the data and being able to experiment rapidly. And that's the only way we can. That's what I was saying, like, you know, it's a good chance that the Gmail version you're using is different from the Gmail version I'm using, and we are all online.
Interesting. I think one thing that I can definitely correlate with you is the consumption part. Even we as a consultant sometimes do not know how my strategy is being consumed at the customer side. Sometimes they even not very open to share those parts, but totally thank you for sharing your points. Ranganath, if I come to you, and because I think very interesting point highlighted by Anand, and because you work with all the hardware manufacturers, the semiconductor chipsets as well, and then to end customers and the hyperscalers. So you are actually the nucleus of, if I talk about the tech ecosystem, how you are seeing this AI needs are getting changed, because you know the ecosystem is definitely evolving, right? But at the same time, the needs and demands of customers are also evolving. Everyone wants to have everything in quick, and the time to market is really challenging. Earlier we used to talk about latency and all those things, but now all those things are just those technical buzzwords which are still in the labs. But if you talk to customer, they are only talking about the cost, incentives, productivity, time to market, and all those things. How you are seeing this at being at the center of the ecosystem? How you see this in the next couple of months?
Yeah, Atul, we are at the cusp of a lot of change, actually. I don't know how many of you all would realize this. Say a decade ago, we were almost in it was more like, what's your cloud strategy, right? You know, where are you, and how are you deploying to a cloud-like environment? You know, are you having a cloud experience in your organization? And slowly but steadily, that's moved into what's your AI strategy, okay? It's not a very simple move in that context, because when you're talking of AI, you're essentially looking at three critical elements of infrastructure for it. One is data, which we have spoken of enough, and the second attribute is your ability to compute. Frankly, anything and everything that we do is a function of time. How quickly can I do? For her, it could be a product that comes into the market space. For him, it could be a feature. For it could be how quickly can a doctor really assess, the X-rays that go through him, right? So anything and everything you do has this design element called time. So when you're looking at those kind of scenarios, your ability to compute the vast amounts of data and then convert that data into knowledge, into intelligence, into knowledge, into wisdom, right? You would have heard of the DIKW metrics as such, right? That's how data gets augmented or enriched in a way and fashion you ultimately land with wisdom. So how quickly can you do that is all about compute. And today compute has got a wide range of ability, right? Somebody was saying they set up a supercomputer and that is equivalent to an Apple 6 iPhone today, right? So the quest for having more and more compute in seeking to get everything as quickly as possible or more or less real time is leading up to a huge spectrum of options from an infrastructure perspective. Starting from compute capability, right? Whether you're wanting to use a CPU, whether you want to use a TPU, a GPU, or whatever it is, right? You're going to have a spectrum of tools that are available. Whether you want to use large volumes of memory, whether you want to use in-memory computing, whether you want to correspond between elements very, very quickly. So the sea change that's really happening from an infrastructure perspective. And there are these AI models as well, right? You have hundreds and hundreds of models. I know of a banking firm which essentially uses about 650 models and has 350 use cases. So what am I indicating at? When you're moving into this new AI world, you're essentially seeing a transformation in everything underneath that. I see AI as one technology that's the greatest unifier for all technical elements within the grasp of mankind today, right? Whether it is at the entry level, it's a phone, the real playground for AI is going to be laptops, right? Where you're really going to play out all the AI related stuff. Then to the other extreme, you want to train models. You want to train a large language model. You need to have 25,000, 30,000 GPUs to run, right? And you need to have that many billion parameters. So this is the entire spectrum that you have, and to which you have AI. So in this changing concept, what becomes important is your ability to get to AI and AI tools as quickly as possible. That's where the dynamics are cloud or cloud experience-based models. From HP, we have what is called as an as-a-service model, essentially saying whatever you want to consume, you can consume that with that cloud experience, right? Whether it is wanting, and with the benefit of that depends on how you see it, whether it's more secure, whether it is more compliant, whether it's faster, etc., right? That's how we want to do that. So this is the changing landscape, and we need to understand this. Another dimension to all of this is sustainability. Your ability, the power consumptions for a GPU today is significantly higher, right? If you had a rack which had 20 servers, today you can put 2 GPU-based servers there, right? You're running into multiple kilowatts per rack, which means you need more power, you need more cooling. Your data center design has to change. While, AI is the unifying talk on a dining table, your mother wants to speak, son wants to speak, I want to speak. It is having an impact that's so significant. So we need to understand that, and then therein lies, how would you be prudent in using a use case? Do you really want to use case for the understanding between a cat and a dog, right? You want to run that many GPUs to do that? Well, you might need that for training, but from a real usage perspective, would you need it? So that's the broad spectrum of landscape today. Purely from an India standpoint, what I see, I meet a lot of customers. I was at the Global AI India Summit as well last week, which happened in Delhi. I'm seeing a greater sense of understanding of AI and implementing that as a strategy. It's no longer, I need to have a GPU machine. It's no longer a use case, right? How many of you are from Bengaluru here? Okay, you have seen those new traffic poles that have come out? Huh? Is it implemented now? Yeah, right? What we did, they set that up, and the use case was to figure out who's the culprit here, right? Who's violating. And what did we do? We significantly took off the number plate. You've seen that? And police realized that. They said, okay, man, this is wrong. And after that, They implemented a change in that AI tool. And then what did we do? A number plate has white background and black numbers, right? We started painting the black numbers white. Have you noticed that? Again, your use case fell apart. So the point I'm trying to make is the world cannot be built while there are use cases for survival. It's like breathing, right? You'll have multiple use cases. I believe we'll have 1.4 crore use cases because everyone is very different as an Indian. But your ability to deliver that many use cases on an AI platform becomes very important. Imagine the very same use case had it been linked to RTO data and you had all the vehicle registration numbers, you had Bangalore traffic police's data about who are the essential violators, you could have still managed this use case. So approaching AI perhaps with a platform approach, whether it is on the cloud, on-prem, as a service, etc., I think makes better sense. Because then you will evolve on your AI experience today. Today, everything is very rudimentary. Nithya said it right. Everyone is experimenting. If I am sitting here and doing it, I would have seen two experiments more than you. But that's the only thing, right? But essentially, everyone in the room are experimenting on that. And we will learn. And technology has emerged. I don't see limitations from a technology perspective. I see limitations from we as people understanding how we adopt technology moving forward.
Exactly. I think thank you for sharing with that real case from Bangalore traffic at least. And I think one thing that understood from your talk is at least we are moving the right direction.
Yes,
we are doing those things. And so on that part, Anand, I would love to, I would love to hear from all of you, and maybe I can start with Anand. While we are talking about all the use cases, infra and all those things, but do you think that India is ready to adopt those things? And not only from the demand point of view, but are we having those support from government? Are we hearing those new policies coming up? And if you also talk about some of the PPP partnership that we are having, we keep hearing about new policies coming for startups, AI, Digital India, so many other areas. But being at the other side of the ecosystem, all four of you, if you can share your experience and what do you think India to be in the AI race in the next 3 to 5 years?
Hey, no, we absolutely are ready. I mean, there is just no doubt at all in my mind. In fact, this morning there was a discussion with the CM and Deputy CM of Karnataka. There were a bunch of venture capitalists also there, and we were discussing. There is this thing called the AI Commission, which is being implemented at every state, where they are procuring a bunch of both GPUs and high performance CPUs, and they are procuring some amount of cloud bandwidths, and they want to give it for both government needs and MSMEs and startups and everything. So I think we are absolutely ready. I think we are more than ready even for fundamental models. For example, people like Servam.ai are actually working on that area also.
Right.
That is way more intensive, compute intensive. But even beyond that, I think the number of use cases we have which can go through automation are massive. India, see, at the end of the day, we are 140 crore people.
Right.
That's a lot of people.
Right.
And they have a lot of needs, and they are every day, 900 million of them are using the phones and generating lots and lots of data. They have wants, they have needs, they have interests, right? And I think anything which we can do to effortlessly help them navigate life, right? It's a huge benefit. And I think the power which AI gives now is you can access all of these capabilities right from your phone, right? And the amount of capability, even when you look at like a 5,000 rupee phone, right? It's gotten to a point where there is enough memory to put in a small enough model to just do a simple set of calculations. And the amount, I mean, not everyone needs to know exactly where to do oil drilling. Right. So I think we are absolutely ready. I mean, can we get it to enough number of people? Can we get it with the right controls on security, privacy? Can we make sure the data is not compromised? Those are all the hard problems which we need to answer. And I hope the policy framework which the governments are working on will ensure that.
Yesterday we had the first keynote from Pari, where Pari mentioned that one thing that AI can't replace is this set of people, right? The 1,000 people in a room. So maybe Apul, I would love to hear from you, obviously the India story, but also a little bit more flavor on the talent part. Do you think that India is ready in terms of providing those resources, in terms of manpower, to build what it needs to be AI superpower in the next 3 to 5 years?
So I am absolutely convinced, I'm an eternal optimist about it. I think AI pretty much levels the playing field. I think there is a lot of innovation that's happening around the world, but so is it happening. So is it happening even in India too. Now, I think in terms of the talent pool, absolutely. I think we've got the density of talent, the challenges or the problems that AI can help solve. I think we'll see a lot of that. We saw this in the telecom era. We actually didn't leapfrog. We actually pole vaulted. We moved, and I think today our telecom, is if you look at the data rates, if you look at the rate, it's unmatched anywhere in the world. And I think that same story or even better story should roll out for India from an AI point of view. I absolutely believe in that. Now, talent, I said yes. I think there is enough and more talent available. There are some really interesting fundamental problems that are, a lot of times, I hear that, hey, this is a problem that's solved in the West and a startup's trying to solve that. I think with AI and the kind of problems that we have here, I think if we can build for the world from here, and I, again, truly believe that AI gives you that opportunity, because once you build from here, the application of that around the world is massive, because we would have tested it with that diverse set of users, those diverse conditions, right? Compute, I'm sure, Google and HP and Microsoft and others, right? Not all of us are going to work on the language models. Not all of us are going to work on building the models. I think for me, I think these are going to become the fundamental tenets. There will be companies working on it, big and small. But I think a lot of innovation will happen on the layers above, the application, the verticals, and the innovation will not just be on the technology side, because technology can build solutions, but when you want to sell that, you have to deliver value. So that requires business innovations. How do you do go-to-market? How do you do pricing? And again, I think we've got very interesting ways to sort of do that here. So I genuinely believe, I think within the policy frameworks that we are defining, if there is a way for it to be a little more transparent in terms of, let's come out with a set of problems, right? Let's look at how industry, it could be two guys sitting in a flat in Sarjapur solving it, or 4 guys in a garage in Silicon Valley. It doesn't really matter, right? But I think there are people already solving that today around the world, right? How do you really get the best of them to come forward, share what they are doing, and how quickly do you give them a sandbox to try that out, so that we can then transition into a nation where these AI is truly used for solving problems. Healthcare, I'm really passionate about. I think a country like India, imagine this, guys. We're about one neurosurgeon, one neurologist for 10 lakh people. Okay, let it sink in for a minute. Now, God forbid if you need ever your loved one needs one, right? A really well-regarded neurosurgeon or neurologist, right? He's not available for the next 3 months. Okay, minimum, right? Especially in cities like Bangalore and Delhi and Bombay, right? Forget, when I go to tier 2, tier 3. AI can be a great problem solver there, right? Because with Rapid, I'm seeing that, right? We can tell you whether is it something that you have to, if somebody has a stroke, does he have to be in the hospital in the next 2 hours, or can we intervene within the next 24 hours and take him to a hub center rather than a comprehensive stroke center, right? These are absolute use cases which can deliver value today, right? And these use cases is what India definitely needs. Like healthcare is, of course, telemedicine, processing data, being able to suggest, diagnosing the problem that the customer may have, and things that we are doing with Rapid. I think definitely. So to that effect, yes, I think we have both the talent side, the problem side, and a unique bed of innovation can be built here at all levels.
Sure. Nithya, maybe obviously a quick thought from you as well, but because you manage the entire APAC, right? So what are you seeing India if you compare it to the rest of APAC? I think if you can add that flavor as well.
So a couple of things I also want to build on what my panelists mentioned, right? So see, the thing is, right, we have got a lot of use cases and the need for AI, right? So be it in healthcare, right? And then very much in context of India, right? The proportion that was mentioned about one neurosurgeon for 10 lakh, right? That's appalling. Similarly, right, if you talk about education, right, we are all privileged to be in cities like Bangalore, where, we see schools having good teacher strength. But if you go to remote part, right, there's one teacher for the whole school. She or he teaches all subjects, right? So there are multiple areas where they're which are really kind of shouting out, crying for solution, right? But the point here is, how do we enable these solutions, right? We have got good thought leaders, right? We know this is how it should be solved, but how do we enable that? So that's where things boil down to availability of infrastructure, indigenous infrastructure, right? So which is about having your own data centers in India. So what I was reading that, on Stack Overflow, right, the Indian developers from India, they are the second most active people on Stack. So that's the amount of AI or IT, I would say, transactions are happening on a platform like Stack Overflow from India, which means that, there is active talent here, right? But when it comes to our readiness as say, for example, an infrastructure leader in the world, right, where, use cases are getting developed for the world, right, we are not there yet. We are 13th in our, in the number of data centers, right, across the world, right? So that's a big problem, right? That's the elephant in the room, if I may, right? So, and the government is trying to solve is what I believe, right? So we have got Digital India, program, and in Digital India we have got data center program which is getting shaped up, wherein government wants to set up data centers indigenously within the cities, and also top that with the Make in India, right, Atmanirbhar Bharat. So we have got all the chip manufacturing localized here, so it becomes easy, more feasible, more cost effective to set up our data centers. Top that up with our focus on green energy, right? So the sustainability problem is also can be addressed. So all of these, we have got multiple streams and multiple policies from the government which need to come together, and we need to have an indigenous compute ecosystem, right? Which is also, the fallout of that is multifold, right? It's also going to give a lot of boost to the startup ecosystem, right? They are cash strapped, right? They really want to have a good amount of compute power so that they can innovate, right? So this is going to kind of only augur good on the solving multiple people solving problems for India and also for the world, right? So in APAC, right, to your question, right, not only in Asia Pacific, across the world, India has got a huge potential to be the solver for the world. But are we there yet? No. What is a huge white space? I would rather say the top of the list is indigenous compute ecosystem.
Got it. Sir, what's your thoughts on this?
So the government is far ahead of us. Okay, we need to really catch up with them in terms of the way they are progressing and the kind of legislation they are bringing into place and the kind of promise in terms of investments, right? You would have read newspapers talking about 10,000 GPUs being procured for India and being made available for many of the startup ecosystem players for several use cases. I think the bigger problem that I see personally is the ability to use AI at scale, right? AI is not a tool to recognize between A and B, right? It is a tool to solve large problems, solve world hunger, solve, a language barrier problem today. Some of the organizations are doing that. You should be speaking your native language and me mine, and then we should be easily corresponding, right? That's the kind of ability that AI can bring to the table. If you're able to implement AI, the effect of leapfrogging can really happen, right? Whenever people ask about Bangalore traffic, again, sorry to come back to Bangalore, I said we forgot the road revolution. We have taken the aircraft, right? Look at the number of airports that we have. We don't want that road revolution in our lives. That's what it is. But nevertheless, we deserve better roads. But the fact of the matter is, how can we scale the AI usage to larger problems, which goes back to the ability for us to look at ingredients that solve this problem, which is your ability to have data. Like, there's so much of data that Google has made available in the open system today. If you're looking at India and a problem, especially in the language space, you don't have active data, right? you don't have enough trained digital data. Somebody answered this question to me very well. AI, do you know how old AI is as a technology? Give me a number. 1960 is close, but slightly older than that as well. 1950s. It's about 74 years old, yeah. So, and it's had its winters, it had its summers, but now I guess it's really happening. And I was asking, why is it? Is this not on hype again, right? So he said that there's one fundamental thing. AI and the ability to drive analytics, drive intelligence was always there. Man was always intelligent, right? That's how we have scaled evolution. But the availability of data and the availability of right compute wasn't there. So today, if you were to look at it, you have all these three things coming together. The amount of data that we have, especially mobile data, is much larger than a sum total of both US and China put together, right? If I'm able to really synthesize that data at the available resources, whether it's edge, data center or cloud, and come out with intelligent solutions, why would it not solve humankind problems? So to that extent, I think AI is compulsory, and especially like with the vision that India carries today to leapfrog. What's the biggest export today from HP today? From India today? It's the digital public infrastructure, right? That's like the Navaratnas that we had earlier. This is what we speak about. Our Prime Minister or anybody else speaks about this, right? This is what you're proud about. That's exactly what we need to do with AI as well. And I think the government is thinking on those lines, and they want all of us to really contribute. And you should thank each one of you, because you're born in a generation where you can contribute to AI, right? When the internet happened, I don't know how we just saw that as something that happened, right? But with AI, you can make your hands and legs dirty and really contribute to the cause. That's my humble request as well.
Thank you so much. I think this has been really engaging panel, and my plan was that I keep this going. I had kept my phone over there, but they are just calling me from there. But thank you so much for your time. And I think one key takeaway for me is like India is definitely ready, and we are on the right path. And one thing I got from you is like we got freedom at the very right time. 1950 started the AI, and we got free over there. So we are very well on time, and I think definitely in the next couple of years we will be the superpower for AI. Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you.
Over to you.
Thank you. Thank you, Anand.
Thank you, everyone.